I don't need another Mac. I think I have a problem here. G'day loves, this is Captain Uzume, and welcome to another episode of Tech Life Without Walls, the main series on this channel where we take a look at old and new technology in a more homely feel. Today's episode, yes, I have a problem. I got another Mac Mini. You probably remember like some of my older videos featuring this one. This is my mid-2010 Mac Mini. It's doing fine. It's currently running Mojave, but I decided, you know what? I want to try out like the older macOS 10 versions because I did not want to ruin my main Mac Mini. So I got this one off eBay about a month ago. The listing said it's an early 2009 model, but when I got it and I saw there was no optical drive, I looked it up. I even looked up its model number right here, which is the model number is A1283, and then here's like the original specifications sticker. You can probably barely see it. Turns out, this is a server model. This has a 2.53 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo, and it has two 500 gigabyte hard drives, so at the time you could use this as like a media center PC or a NAS or even just a server. Got some dirt on it, and it has like residue from where a label was, so I presume this was probably used in some kind of a business maybe, or school or something. This is the top. This is one of the older ones. This is before the unibody one that I have right there. The server models lack an optical drive. It's a little dirty, but I'll clean it up. And here's the back where we have the vents for the fan, power button. This is the power connector. It's not like the two-prong one that the later models use. Ethernet, FireWire. I think this is mini VGA. I know this is mini DisplayPort right here. Kensington security lock, line in, headphones, and 5 USB ports. 2 of them are being occupied by the keyboard and mouse I use. I use this wireless Logitech keyboard and mouse, which is what I also use with my other Mac Mini. When I first got this, and I'm going to edit the pictures to show, when I first got this last month and plugged it in and turned it on, it showed a no symbol on the screen, meaning that the OS is corrupt, like either that the install got corrupted or it's running a version of macOS that this thing does not natively support. This originally shipped with Snow Leopard, since this is a late 2009 model. And the currently supported version of macOS that this can support is El Capitan. So if I had to hazard a guess, someone had probably tried to install Sierra or a newer version on this and it didn't work without using the proper patchers. So what I did was I plugged in my other Mac Mini over there, found a tutorial, and created a USB thumb drive for this that has El Capitan on it and installed it, and it worked just fine. Then I found the original images for this device that came with Snow Leopard. Put it on this thumb drive. I used the restore tool and used the restore feature on the disk utility application, and it worked just fine. And I was able to restore this thing back to factory. It's currently running Snow Leopard, not Snow Leopard server. This is just running 10.6 Snow Leopard. I even got the iLife suite on here, like iPhoto, iMovie, GarageBand, the older versions from 2009 on here. And I've shared pictures of this with some of my friends, but I've never showed this in a video before. So without further ado, let's plug this thing in and turn it on and see if it works. It should, because, well, I haven't used it much lately, but let's see. Forgot to mention, this is what the power connector looks like. It uses like a laptop style power supply, and this, it may look like a USB-C, but it's a little bit bigger. Different pinout, so it plugs in like this. Like that. Now I need to find the monitor cable. It fell behind the table. Hold on. Okay, I got it all plugged in. And right over here is the setup. This is the only spare monitor I have. This is a 20-inch Acer monitor built in 2014. And it's plugged into this HDMI switcher because this one only has DVI and VGA. So I use this old Geek Squad branded DVI to HDMI cable that my parents had used previously back in 2010 or so to hook up a similar monitor. It was a 23-inch Samsung SyncMaster 2 our DVR at the time, and that's what we used as a TV before we got our first proper high-definition television, but that's what we had. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to reach over here and turn on the monitor. Still works pretty well for its age. It's got a lot of hours out of it, so this was my cousin's, but he gave it to me years ago when he upgraded his monitors. It still works for some of the systems that I have, like older systems that have DVI or VGA only. And I use this kind of weird switcher setup because, as I explained earlier, that's how it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. It's a little quiet because I turned down the volume, but here it is. Kind of a nice, cozy little setup here. Probably need to adjust the brightness on the monitor. Just kind of hard to do. This is such an awkward angle, but what are you gonna do? Nope. Okay, here it is on the desktop. It was kind of an awkward position, but here it is. This is currently running. Let me zoom in here. It's currently running Mac OS 10, 10.6, just 10.6. It still has the stock 4 gigabytes of RAM. In fact, I can actually zoom into here. Yeah, it's a Mac Mini 3,1 is the identifier. This is on the system profiler here. Does not have any ATA devices, and looks like I'll do a software update later. Yeah, it shows like what the Bluetooth chip is made by Broadcom. I don't really use the Bluetooth on this thing, so power on self-test, disk burning. Well, there's no disk drive built into this machine. You know, when I first got this, I thought it was, because I know it's a very common mod for the Mac Mini to take out its optical drive and put in a secondary hard drive. That's what I thought it was at first, and then I realized I got a server model. I thought the eBay listing said it would be an early 2009 model, but I guess it was misidentified, but hey, I got lucky with that one. This model originally cost $999 when it was brand new. I got it for just $75 off eBay. Ethernet controllers. Yeah, it does not support fiber channel. Yeah, I think that's only like on the server models. Like I know some models of the Mac Pro supported fiber channel, as well as the Xserve also supports fiber channel. Yeah, it was FireWire 800. I actually have a few FireWire devices somewhere. Graphics, this has a NVIDIA GeForce 9400 with 256 megabytes of RAM. It's detecting the monitor, which is an Acer 5200 HQL with a resolution of 1600 by 900. It's not the full resolution this monitor could support, but it's good enough for what it is. It's at 60 Hertz, 32-bit color. Hardware RAID configuration, I don't think I could put a RAID on this thing. The memory, it shows like how much is in it. DDR3, 1067 megahertz, 2 DIMMs. Probably take SODIMMs like on a laptop, PCI, parallel SCSI, power. Shows like 10 minutes. You can even have like Wake on LAN if you wanted to. Printers, has like the latest printer drivers. Doesn't have any SAS devices. Serial ATA is showing 2 Hitachi hard drives, 500 gigabytes, probably laptop style. And this is the partition type GUID partition table. The only GPT we ever really care about on this channel. It has a rotational rate. You have 5400 RPM drives. Yeah. USB devices. Probably just, yeah, it's detecting like the receivers I have on this thing. Developers, what applications are currently installed. It's pretty much just like the stock Apple ones, you know, like iCal and iDVD and iChat and iTunes, iEverything. Yahoo Sync. Does anyone even use Yahoo anymore? Let me know down in the comments. All the extensions, you know, the drivers for this and everything, and there's the spinning beach ball. Did I ever tell you this thing still has its stock hard drives? Yeah, it's taking a while to load. This is basically just all the drivers for everything. Fonts, it's pretty much just like all the default fonts that are loaded on this thing. Frameworks. This is connected to Wi-Fi, so it's pretty much just like, you know, stuff like Apple Sync and things like that. WebKit for Safari. Which, believe it or not, WebKit was not originally developed by Apple. It was originally developed by the people who did KDE. Logs for power management and the install in the kernel and the window manager. Manage client, reference panel, no, sorry, the reference panes. I almost said panels. Startup items if you choose to have an application you want to on startup, like say if you want to have Photoshop on startup or something like that, or since this is a server, probably like some kind of like network client or a virtual machine client that you want to have on startup. There you go, or a hypervisor of some kind. Sync services for syncing devices, and universal access. It's mainly for accessibility, basically. Let me just close out of that. So what I have here, of course, oh, it would help if I zoom out. Okay. Of course, there's the Finder. This is the dashboard, which has like all the different widgets, if you will. Like there's a calculator. Like say, just do like yeah, just play around with that. And then this is, I think this is for stocks, or as they say, stonks. Can't believe I said that. There's a calendar there, and then this is the clock showing like the current time in New York, for example. Or say you could just change it to like a different city. Let's choose Cupertino, for example. Yeah, going 3 hours behind, of course. So it would be a quarter to noon for them. So it would be 11:44 a.m. It's 2:44 p.m. for us, so I'll change it back to New York. There we go, that's the dashboard. And then mail, of course, this is the built-in mail client if you have an email address and want to use it. Let me zoom in a little. Yeah. I love how the icon is a stamp and has like a stamp says hello for Cupertino. That's a nice touch. I love this skeuomorphic era. Some people say Frutiger era, but yeah, we have Safari, which has a bit of a character to it because of course this is an older version of Safari, so it does not load very well. But there are ways to fix it. Yeah, this is actually this is a very old version of Safari. This is Safari 4.0.3, which is the version that came stock with this version of macOS 10. It definitely reminds me of like other web browsers from the time. I'm getting kind of like an early, like an older version of Firefox vibe, because in 2009 Firefox was my main browser. That's what it definitely reminds me of. It definitely reminds me of Firefox, but I know there are versions of Firefox for this version of macOS 10. iChat, it's pretty much, as they say, it's kind of like the precursor to FaceTime, if you will. It was also partially developed by AOL, so it was kind of like the Mac version of AIM, if you want to be technical. The address book, which has the addresses, yeah, that's just mine. And then we have Apple's, and then this is really old because they're not even at One Infinite Loop anymore. They're at Apple Park these days. But when this came out, they were still at One Infinite Loop. We have iCal. I have to say, I really like this interface of macOS 10. I really like this interface. It just definitely takes me back, even though I was a PC user back when this was new. I was mainly using Windows XP on an HP Compact around this time, and my parents' laptops. My mother had a Dell XPS that ran Windows Vista, and I had no problems with Vista, as I stated in previous videos. And my dad has similar Dell XPS. I think his also came with Vista, but he put Windows 7 on it, so he was an early adopter. But yeah. We have Preview, which is mainly for if you have any pictures loaded, if you're importing stuff from your digital camera and whatnot. That's pretty much what it is. It doesn't want to load for some reason. We have iTunes, an older version of iTunes. This is iTunes 8, also from 2009. I remember iTunes. I remember when iTunes looked like this. I used the Windows version back then. That's pretty much the only song I have on here. It's a song from Cutie Honey Universe, which is an anime I've been watching. It's a pretty good series. Kind of too new for this system since the anime came out in 2018, but meh, it's a pretty good song nonetheless. But yeah, I don't have much music on here. I do have a large music collection, but it's on my computer downstairs, and this has like all the different playlists and stuff, but this is a very old version of iTunes, so I don't think it'll work very well. I do have an older iPhone that I'm actually going to use in this video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, we have the photo booth, which only works if you have a camera. I don't have a webcam installed on this thing. We have iPhotos. This is going into the iLife suite now. And it's wanting to open up a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty much, of course, it's an application if you have a digital camera plugged in and you want to import your photos. It's pretty much like the Photos application. Yeah, check out those old icons. Facebook and Flickr, they're still around. MobileMe does not exist anymore. That pretty much became iCloud, of course. MobileMe, in case you're not familiar, is the successor to iTool/.Mac, which was the web services for the Mac that was introduced. I think it was introduced just when macOS 10 was coming out around 2001 or so. Actually, no, it existed in 2000, so it was macOS 9. And then this is a very nostalgic site for any of my viewers that used a Mac back then. This is iMovie 09. I actually have some nostalgia from using iMovie, or iMovie version 8.0.4. I never had a Mac until fairly recently. If you count 2019 as fairly recently, but I remember iMovie. It takes me back to like a certain time, a certain era of YouTube, especially with like the sound effects and the stock music and the titles, transitions, everything. It's still pretty capable today if you want to have a basic video editor that isn't too advanced. Same thing with Windows Movie Maker. I actually have a lot of nostalgia for Windows Movie Maker on XP. That's how I started off making videos, but they weren't on YouTube. They were on the LEGO Universe Creation Lab. Actually, I would make my brick films and edit it on that. And if you had a Mac, you had iMovie. This might be fun to play around with. In fact, I'm actually going to edit the second half of this video in iMovie, which would be fun. And then we have GarageBand, of course. I actually make music in GarageBand, but I use like a newer version on Mojave. This is, of course, GarageBand 09 version 5.1. I actually pretty much like GarageBand. It's a pretty good. It's a basic digital audio workstation, but it works. There's like a lot of loops and instruments, and you can even plug in a keyboard if you like. It's pretty cool. I really like GarageBand. That's the reason why I bought a Mac, was because of GarageBand. And then we have, of course, the Time Machine backup utility. I don't need to set up any backups, but this was of course was introduced with Leopard. I don't need to set up a backup yet, but just open it up just to demonstrate it. But it's still pretty cool for its time. I really like that icon. I love how it kind of almost looks like a pocket watch in a way. I don't know, I love, this is what I call the space era. Starting with Leopard and then ending with Mountain Lion. I love these wallpapers. In fact, I can actually change the desktop background, and this actually has like all the old wallpapers. There's even like some space ones, like here's one of Earth and the horizon of Earth. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I'm a sucker for space backgrounds. Yeah, this is the one from Leopard. It's called Aurora. This is one from Snow Leopard. And fun fact, the default wallpaper on Windows 7, excuse me, sorry, that was called Harmony, that wasn't even. The default wallpaper on Windows Vista was also called Aurora, and I pretty much like that one too. There's like a whole bunch of like different ones. Here's one of like the actual Snow Leopard, like on the box art. Yep. There's even like some like different patterns, like this kind of pinstripe pattern, and then this one. Yeah, it's of a sari. Yeah, it's like different patterns, like fabric. These kind of abstract wallpapers here. These kind of remind me of, like this one. Like this kind of reminds me of like modern macOS wallpapers, or even the ones on Windows 11 and iOS. They kind of look very similar to this. Like some of these like abstract pieces. There's even like some black and white shots. Like this one's like very dramatic. This one, it's like a whole bunch of like different scenes. I think it's called Mojave. Oh, this one's pretty cool too. It's like a wintry scene, like mountains and everything. It's like a whole bunch of different wallpapers. It's like, oh my gosh, it has, I think that's the one from Tiger. This is like the old one. Yeah, some of the old wallpapers are still in this. Here's the one from Jaguar. Here's the one from Panther. I actually really like these like wavy wallpapers. I like this kind of tile one. That's very, very 2000s actually. I really like these. Some of these actually remind me of some of the ones from macOS 9. They had very similar wallpapers to this. I think the graphite ones are from the server versions, I think. Because I remember there was like a server version of the wallpapers from Snow Leopard and Leopard that were tinted blue. That were actually pretty cool too. Yeah. I've seen like some of these, of course. There's a Snow Leopard on the prowl there, but I like the default wallpaper. It's actually pretty cool. Then I have like the solid colors. Hey, look, it's space gray. I'm way too easily amused. You have iPhoto if you have any pictures, which I do not actually. And then like folders with some pictures. Yeah, I do not have any pictures on this thing at the moment. Except for like some screenshots of the grab tool, and I'm spending way too much time on this, but here's the desktop and the screensaver. But I forgot to mention there's also screensavers, like you have this one. I thought this looked pretty cool. I remember there was like I think there was a screensaver on Vista that looked very similar to this. The iTunes artwork, RSS visualizer if you're subscribed to any RSS feeds, shell. This one looks very psychedelic. Whoa. Spectrum. This is like a kind of like a rainbow spectrum of colors, and it's appearing much darker on my camera for some reason. That is actually pretty cool. And then the word of the day, which is kind of like a dictionary, where it pulls a random word from the dictionary. Plastic. further. So that's the word of the day, is further. And then this is like the computer name. There's a modern version of this where the Apple logo is not glossy. Captain Uzume's Mac Mini. There's something very similar to some with this. Oh, this one reminds me of like a bokeh kind of effect. That also looks very mesmerizing. It's like, wow. I'll do like the flurry. This one's pretty cool. That's one I'll do. Oh, you can show it with the clock too if you really want to. Have like the current time. Some screensavers are like that. I'm very nostalgic of the Windows one, so I think it's because I'm biased, but yeah. CDs and DVDs. If you have a Mac that has an internal drive, or an external drive in this case, I actually do have an external DVD drive, but it's downstairs. You have Expose. This was a new feature. Or what version was it introduced in? I think it was, I can't remember. Was it Panther? Was it Tiger? Or was it Leopard? I forget. I'm not a Mac person, so please let me know down in the comments. I know there was still a feature on this version. I think they changed it. And this has the dock, which has like two different effects, where you have the genie effect or the scale effect. I like the genie effect. I think that's pretty cool. And I like to have like the max magnification on the dock. And you can also change the position, like have it on the left. Like there are some people who have this on their Mac like this. This with the dock on the left, it reminds me of Ubuntu. It reminds me of how the Unity desktop was, where it had it on the left right there. And I know some people did not like the Unity desktop, but I had no problems with it. I actually liked it. I like this 3D dock better than the one they started using with Yosemite. This one actually looks prettier. Yeah. And then displays, it shows like you have like the different resolutions. I think this is the highest resolution this can have, as well as the color profiles. They even have like custom color profiles if you're using like an Apple Studio Display or Cinema Display. And I'm rambling so much about this, and then energy saving if you really want to do that, but this isn't a laptop, so well, it's kind of it has like the specifications of a MacBook crammed into a desktop space. Actually, let me turn up the sound. These are like the old sounds. I'm gonna keep it on Sasumi. I've always liked that one. And then here is Mobile Me, which does not exist anymore. It got shut down in 2012 and was replaced by iCloud fully. Yeah. If you had like your username and password. But I highly doubt it'll work these days because it's pretty much obsolete. And then Bluetooth, if you have any Bluetooth devices, say if you have an external speaker or headphones or keyboard and mouse. That's pretty much what it is. And then speech. These are like the old Macatalk voices, actually. I actually really like these.
Does it be nice to have the computer? Then we'll talk to you.
I sure like being inside this fancy computer.
I sure like being inside this fancy computer. But some of my favorites is, I like some of the novelty voices. I love how that sounds.
That looks like a peaceful planet.
Fun fact, the cello's voice is actually the one that was actually the voice that was used for the old droid sound. Yeah, I actually used that for my old YouTube intro for my old name, but it doesn't really fit me anymore because I don't cover phones much. But yeah, this is system preferences. I love how this looks now. You can also choose a startup disk if you have a different hard drive. If you're dual booting 2 different versions, I could actually do that. I could dual boot 2 different versions of macOS on this thing if I want to, since this thing has 2 hard drives. So it could actually work. And I'm going to film the other half of this video using this. This is my iPhone 4S. I found this in a box, decided, you know what? I'm going to use this as like a camera to be era appropriate, and to any of my viewers out there who come here for AI videos, no, you're not going to see Siri in this video. If you want to see Siri, you can go somewhere else. Now, let's change the camera. And here we are. I am currently filming this with my iPhone 4S. And what we're going to do is I am going to update this to the latest version of Snow Leopard, as well as like all the applications and stuff, and let's see if it works. This phone only has 16 gigabytes of space, so I'm probably going to have to transfer it later. Let's see. Software updates are available for a computer. Do you want to install now? So this is what it has. iLife support, iMovie update, probably the latest version of iTunes this thing can support, macOS 10 update combined, airport utility, iPhoto update, remote desktop client update. Yes, I would like to install it, and I'm going to type in my password. For a second I couldn't remember my password, but I need to reboot, and that's what I'll do. Now it's installing all the packages, it's validating everything. I've been watching this YouTuber lately called the Original Collector, and they make videos showing how you could still use older versions of macOS 10 today with a lot of updates and upgrades and stuff. It's kind of like what I'm doing. It's like I got inspired by them lately, so that's pretty cool. Now it's going to install pretty much all the files. It's going to upgrade it to the latest version of Snow Leopard this thing can support, and I want to keep it on Snow Leopard because I think it looks pretty. Even though this can support all the way up to El Capitan. And I kind of have a funny story about Yosemite. I distinctly remember watching a video of someone where they had gotten a then brand new iMac. This was in 2014 when it first came out, and I could tell this person is not from the US because of the way they pronounced it. I've heard people say Yosemite, but this pronunciation has stuck with me ever since. They said it as Yosemite. Yosemite. That's not even close to the pronunciation. I mean, Yosemite is valid, but Yosemite. I can't remember. Bless you, Abby, that was my cat. I can't remember who made the video or what it was. I think it was like one of those like room tour, office tour videos, and it was a long time ago, but that pronunciation has stuck with me ever since. And we're just gonna wait for this to finish installing. Okay, it's now moving items into place, so it's not taking as long as I thought, despite this thing being about 15, almost 16 years old and still has the original hard drives and the 4 gigabytes of RAM. I actually thought about doing similar upgrades to this, like with my mid-2010 model, maxing out the RAM and replacing the hard drives with SSDs, but that'll be for down the road in a future video. It's running the package script, so we're almost there. It's now rebooting. Let's have the wallpaper right here. I can move the cursor. Probably just doing its thing in the background. I'll give it a minute or two. Now it just rebooted. And I forgot to capture the chime on camera, but that's okay. Yeah. I'm so used to like the newer versions of macOS 10 where the Apple logo where the background would turn black and the Apple logo would turn white. Like on my mid-2010 model. But it's taking its sweet time. Well, this is an older machine, so you have to have patience. Oh. I see the blue screen. But it's not the blue screen of death. Oh, there's wallpaper. Desktop loads up. Spinning beach ball. The drives and the dock. And my cat is walking across the screen. So yeah, this is the latest version of Snow Leopard. I'll do the about this Mac. Yep. This is version 10.6.8, the latest version, from 2011. Yeah. This has the App Store on it, and this has a newer version of iTunes than the one that I showed previously. If the icon can stop bouncing. Yeah, I've read everything. No, I don't want to connect to the iTunes store. This is iTunes 10.6.3 from 2012. So that means I can sync this iPhone to this, because this is a 4S from 2011 and this is a version from 2012. So close out of iTunes and let's see if there's any more updates. Let's see. While that's doing its thing, I'm going to open up Safari here. And it doesn't want to open up, of course. This is Safari 5.0.5. Close out of that. So there's more updates. Security updates. iTunes updates. Updates out the wazoo. Gotta love updates, am I right? Now it's downloading the latest version of Safari. I'm not even going to use Safari on this thing. I'm going to use a different browser. Probably a version of Firefox on here. It's a much better browser than Safari anyways. And it's installing the security updates from 2013. That was 12 years ago, and also the year I started YouTube. But in 2013 was also the year I first saw a Mac in person. I was at a friend's house, and that was what their father used. He had I think it was a 20-inch iMac, 2011 model. It came out just before Lion, so it probably had Snow Leopard. I know that he had Microsoft Office for Mac 2011 on it, because I remember seeing the icons on the dock. We played the Google Chrome version of Angry Birds, and it was pretty fun. But in 2013 at home, I was using a computer that was running Windows 7. It had an AMD Phenom 2 processor. It had the integrated NVIDIA Enforce graphics. It was a server motherboard. It was not really a good computer, but it served its purpose. It had 8 gigabytes of RAM. It was decent. My dad built it as a server in 2011. Then we turned it into the family computer when the HP Compact that was running Ubuntu went kaput, and we decided to rebuild that one and turn it into a computer for our next door neighbors for their grandson. We put Windows 7 on that one. Then we built them a new computer when that one finally died. So now it's installing Java. Yay, Java. Yeah, it's just going through the motions of all the updates. It's going through so many updates. It's going to give Windows 10 a run for its money. I had to. And now we'll reboot again. And it's going to be installing more packages. Trying to get this thing up to date with the latest version of Snow Leopard, because as I stated in one of the previous clips, I want to keep this on Snow Leopard. I have no plans on putting on Lion or any other version. Just want to keep it on Snow Leopard because I have a soft spot for the older versions of macOS 10, even though it was a PC gal growing up. But I really like the look and feel of it. It also gives me a vibe of old versions of Ubuntu. It makes sense considering that one is a Linux distro and this one is based on BSD, or rather Darwin, the mock kernel, BSD. So Unix, so it's all Unix based, so that's why it has that kind of interface and why I grew to be familiar with it. And why I have a soft spot for the older Macs, because it has that kind of nostalgic feeling, even though I never had a Mac and I never saw a Mac in person until 2013, but yeah. And another reboot. Well, that's what happens when you update things. Make sure everything is up to date, in terms of Snow Leopard, of course. And now we're on the desktop, and Flash is saying it's out of date. I have no means of using Flash on this system, as far as I could tell. Yeah, it's still on 10.6.8, but let's see if there's even more updates, because why not? Let's see. Still checking for new software. I have no plans on using Flash on this system. If I want to play old Flash games bad enough, I'd rather just use Rumble or Flashpoint or something. Software update doesn't have any new software for your computer at this time. Well, looks like everything is up to date. We got iTunes. Oh, it looks like the icon just changed as soon as I clicked on it. And yes, I read the agreement. This is a version from 2013. Yeah, because it's running like a newer MacBook. Running Mavericks, it looks like. And I could tell it's also from 2013, judged by some of the music releases. I mean, I see Demi Lovato's Really Don't Care album right there. Yeah, this is iTunes version 11.4 from, wow, 2014. Okay, that's a little bit newer than I thought. But that's like the latest, wow, that's the latest version that this thing can support. That's crazy. That was around the time when Yosemite, yeah. Let's see what happens if I just go to apple.com. Yeah, I'm going to have to put another browser on this. This is 5.1.10 from 2013, the latest version of Safari this thing can support. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to talk about this video, and it's actually very interesting just going through, opening up applications and kind of demonstrating them a little. But I'll be doing more videos on this late 2009 Mac Mini server soon. And I hope you all enjoy this video, and more videos will be coming soon, so stay tuned, and cheers loves!